Indiana football's quarterback room is absolutely loaded for 2025 and beyond.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goetz. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with the FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Well, thank you so much for being here. Truly making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. Reminder, this is an Indiana podcast, free to you Monday through Friday. You'll never pay a nickel to have this show delivered straight to you every single weekday. We're going to look ahead for Indiana basketball, what's coming up with Purdue this Friday and the tough stretch ahead, and how the Hoosiers can somehow get this thing turned around, and maybe what would be an okay clip to hit in these next 6 games. Plus, we're talking about the quarterback room today and a hire that Indiana made that hasn't been highlighted all that much. One that I think we need to talk about, and why I think it's going to make the quarterback room better, because I think it's a loaded quarterback room for 2025 and for the years to come. And we know there's been a lot of change, right? Obviously, we're losing our leader, our quarterback, who, if he doesn't get injured, I think Curtis Rourke is sitting in New York for the Heisman ceremony. I just believe that's the case. I think he was good enough to do that. But of course, the injuries kind of held him back just a little bit. So we lose him because of eligibility. We also lose Taven Jackson to the transfer portal, which was a pretty big surprise to a lot of us because we thought, okay, Taven's got a pretty good chance to start. There were several of you who thought he should start and be the leader in the clubhouse going in to 2025. And then all of a sudden he hits the portal with the news and the rumors of Indiana bringing in more quarterbacks, and he has since committed to UCF, where he's going to try and be the starter down in Central Florida. And so Indiana had to go get some guys. And again, that whole situation with Taven was because Indiana was going to get somebody, but I was telling you, I thought Indiana had to go get somebody anyway, because it just makes sense in today's day and age to have competition in the quarterback room. You should never have a deficit of quarterbacks now. With the transfer portal and NIL the way that it is, you should never have a quarterback problem. And Indiana felt the same way. So they went to get somebody who they felt could come in, make an impact, and possibly start. Well, when you get your hands on a guy like Fernando Mendoza, he's not somebody that can possibly start. He's somebody that will start for you. He threw for 3,000 yards last year at Cal. He's got wins in the Pac-12, RIP. He's got wins over everybody everybody that could get their hands on. He beat an SEC team this past season. I mean, Mendoza's the real deal, and I don't have to sell you on him anymore. Had 3,000 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions with a pretty bad Cal team that he actually made halfway decent. So Indiana goes and gets their starter, right? Cool. Curtis Rourke, we appreciate you. See you. Best of luck to you. Wish you were coming back, but we hope you nothing but the best. Now we've got our starter in Fernando Mendoza. Then the question becomes, okay, who do you have behind him? Who do you put behind him? What can you get to make this room successful? And I want to remind you on what Indiana did in the transfer portal. In case you forgot, we went and got a guy called and named Grant Wilson, who was at Old Dominion. Now, this is a guy who's played a lot of college football. He was several years at Old Dominion. He was there for 2. Then he was at Fordham for 3 before that. So he's played 5 years of college football, and he's got 2,700 career passing yards. The guy is huge. He's 6'3", 217 pounds. Didn't really see the field at Fordham a whole lot, but when he got in to be the starter as the Old Dominion quarterback before he got hurt in 2024, he had 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, but he did get injured. So you're bringing in somebody who the stats may not blow you away, but you bring in somebody experienced who's played college football for several years, not at this level, of course, but football's football in terms of being prepared, being ready, and needing him in an emergency situation, right? So you bring in the Old Dominion transfer, Grant Wilson. All right, cool, right? You're set there. Bring in a couple portal quarterbacks. Now what do we have? Well, you have a high school recruit that's coming through, right? You have Jacob Bell, who has committed and been committed to Indiana since for a little bit now. The 2025 three-star quarterback commit. Listen to these numbers that he had in his senior season over in Illinois. 44 total touchdowns just in his senior season now. 44 total touchdowns, 3,200 yards, 63 completion percentage. His quarterback rating was 111. Yeah, 111 was his quarterback rating, had 44 total touchdowns as a three-star high school commit, or recruit, I should say, in the quarterback position. So you bring in a young freshman for this Indiana quarterback room as well. But some of you are probably saying, wait, aren't you forgetting about Tyler Cherry? Yeah, we're talking Tyler Cherry and the younger Mendoza. Don't forget that too. You got the Mendoza brothers that are here. I think those are going to be more of, let's see how they pan out, right? Because with Tyler Cherry, we know that he had some injury problems, a non-contact injury in the college football playoff preparation. And unfortunately, they're concerned about him being there for fall practice. And that's not good because I think Tyler Cherry is one of the most talented quarterbacks in that room for head coach Curt Cignetti and this Indiana football team. But I say all of that to say that this room is loaded, but it's also scary because of how young it is and the lack of experience and the lack of high level experience, if that makes sense. Because again, you bring in a guy like Grant Wilson, that's great. He's played a lot of college football, just not at this level. Now you're talking about the younger Mendoza, you're talking about Tyler Cherry, you're talking Jacob Bell, a high school recruit coming into 2025. I mean, it could get scary if something goes wrong with Fernando Mendoza, whether that be an injury, whether that be him just not panning out, or whatever the case may be. That's where it could get kind of scary for at least 2025 if things don't work out with Mendoza. But I still think it's a loaded group. And I think looking ahead to what the future holds for Indiana football, I think it's going to be really, really good for this program. And I also think it could be good this year and moving forward because of a hire that Indiana made to replace Tino Sunseri. This hire has been already confirmed for the last couple of weeks, but I want to bring it back up because I don't think enough people are talking about it. We'll have that for you coming up next right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with the FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss. I'm a tails guy myself. FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to use and to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, yeah, that's a pretty sweet deal. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on all things Indiana athletics. Thank you so much for being here. If you are one of my everydayers, if you are new here, or you're just now starting to get it into the rotation, appreciate you being here. And I ask you to do just a few things. If you are listening on your audio podcasting platforms of Amazon or Spotify or Apple or whatever other platform that you're on, be sure you got those notifications turned on so you never miss new episodes and our bonus episodes of Locked On Hoosiers. Leave us those 5-star reviews. If you can follow us, subscribe, however you can keep up with this show, I ask that you do that on your podcasting platforms. And for those of you, the many of you, the thousands of you that watch and listen on YouTube every single day, thank you so much for doing that as well. Like this video so the YouTube robot will get it out there and let other people find it. Put your thoughts in the comments down below on Indiana's quarterback room. Are you excited about 2025? Are you nervous about 2025? What about the future of this quarterback room? Where do you think it stands right now? I want to hear your comments and your thoughts down below. And if you haven't already, I ask that you subscribe to this YouTube channel because we grow by the day and we continue to hit milestone after milestone after milestone. And as of right now, as of this recording, we are 11 subs away from 4,500 subscribers on the YouTube channel. So if you could help me get there, really would appreciate that. And you know what we'll do? We'll keep moving that echelon, keep moving that stick, and keep moving forward. So help us get to 4,500 subscribers. Well, I'm talking about Indiana's quarterback room and how I think it is stacked and loaded for 2025 and really for the future of this Indiana football program, because you bring in your starter in Mendoza, and we're really, really excited about him. And the reason you're excited about him is because of what he's done in the past, right? We've seen what he's done with lesser talent, lesser coaches at a lesser program like California. Sorry, they catch a random stray on this Wednesday. But you bring in Mendoza along with your two leading receivers from a year ago. You still bring back Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt. You bring your two best receivers from a year ago on a college football playoff team, and you bring them back offensively for yet another year. On top of what Indiana brings in terms of the transfer portal, right? You bring in Mekhi Jackson, the App State receiver. You bring in Holden Stays, the Tennessee tight end, who I think will be your starting tight end, Will Stays from Tennessee. So you bring in two big playmakers and football catchers through the transfer portal on top of Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper, who will be returning on the offensive side of the football. You're still trying to get that offensive line settled, right? I guess finalized is the best word to use for that. And so I'm really excited about what Mendoza can bring. And I'm also excited because he's going to be working with a guy that I think could make this room and this football team really, really good. Indiana hired, and this has been a few weeks ago, Indiana hired Chandler Whitmer to join the offensive staff. He will be now the quarterback's coach and the co-offensive coordinator for Indiana football in 2025. Position sounds familiar, right? It's because you had to replace Tino Sunseri, who left to be the offensive coordinator at UCLA. I told you that was a big deal, and I still think it is. I think Tino Sunseri, in the next decade, probably less, I think he'll be a head coach somewhere. I really do. I think Tino's a great dude. I know he's a great dude. He's a really good coach. He's going to be a head coach somewhere at some point in the next several years, so watch out for that. But Indiana had to replace him. And Tino was a big part of this team's success on the offensive side of the football. And you had to go replace that with somebody. And you do with the passing game specialist for the Atlanta Falcons in the NFL. You go and get Chandler Whitmer, who going to be making several $100,000. His contract is out. Paying him very well is Indiana, right? We talked yesterday about how Kurt Cignetti's doing things the right way. This is the same way. You pay these guys to step in to a program that is building and growing and becoming a sleeping giant in college football. But reason I highlight this is because this guy has worked with some of the best quarterbacks in the history of the game, okay? While he's been in Atlanta, he's been working with Michael Penix Jr. You may have heard that name before. He's pretty good. He's been working with him in the NFL, and he also worked with the Chargers for several years, 3 to be exact, and he worked with the quarterbacks. Who's been the quarterback for the Chargers in the last several years? Yes, Justin Herbert, who's been breaking records in the NFL because of his passing game. Is it all because of Whitmer? No, but it's a big part of it. And you start talking about a guy who's a passing game specialist in the NFL, which is what they do. Yeah, the guy's legit. And Indiana went and got this dude. He's also worked with big names like Justin Fields during his time at Ohio State, Trevor Lawrence during his time at Clemson. You're talking about guys that have legitimately played the highest level of college football at the quarterback position and have gone on to have NFL careers. And Indiana brings that guy in our locker room, in our program, on our campus to be working with the likes of Mendoza squared and Cherry and Jacob Bell and all these guys that Indiana has in the quarterback room. This is a big deal. And so when I say the quarterback room is loaded, I don't just mean the players. I mean the coaches that are around them too. And you pair that with what Indiana's already got on the offensive staff, plus Curt Cignetti, who I think can get in his bag every now and then. Yeah, Indiana's quarterback room is stacked, and it's going to be prepared, and it's going to get developed. And I think that's a big thing that we lose in today's college football. We lose sight of anyway, is, okay, we always want to look at, well, how talented are you right now? How good are you right now? What can you bring us right now? And that is important, yes. But in terms of what Indiana has right now, you need to get developed. You need to get better. You need to progress over this next season and beyond, because behind Mendoza, other than Grant Wilson, an Old Dominion transfer, you just don't have a whole lot of experience. And you're not trying to throw a freshman in there or Mendoza in there or Tyler Cherry if he gets healthy. I mean, you're not trying to do all of that. And so while it hurt to lose Taven Jackson, this will at least force you now, if you're Indiana, to develop those guys a little bit and get them prepared for either a doomsday situation in 2025 or the future for 26, 27, and beyond. I just think, though, when you focus in on 25 for a second here, with Fernando Mendoza, a 3,000-yard passer, with two great receivers coming back, your leading receivers in Surratt and Cooper, plus what you're bringing in through the transfer portal, the offense very well could be better than it was last year, which is wild to say because Indiana was one of the most explosive offenses in college football in 2024. And I think it could be better. I think it has a chance to beat those numbers, to beat those records, and to be more effective and more consistent. I think that's a big word that we're going to have to focus on for 2025, especially on the offensive side of the football, is consistency. If you get the boys up front, you're going to have the running backs. I love BB Jr. coming in from UAB in the transfer portal as well. You are going to have consistency on the offensive side of the football. And I think with the quarterback room you have that I think is loaded for 25 and beyond, you hire Whitmer from the Atlanta Falcons, which is an underrated hire by Curt Cignetti, plus all the guys you bring back and in the transfer portal. Watch out for Indiana's offense, man. We'll do more breakdowns of other positions and tell you why this is the case. I think this offense has potential to be really, really good and really, really scary for 2025 and for years to come. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, final segment will be next. We'll talk about Indiana basketball, even with all the controversy, even with all the whatever you want, the drama, if you want to call it that. You still have basketball games to play. We'll look ahead at what Indiana has coming up and how in the world can they turn this thing around. We'll have that for you in our final segment right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here, and shout out to my everydayers, those of you that are here every single day, Monday through Friday, whether it's on YouTube, whether you're listening on your podcast and your audio somewhere. Thank you so much for being here. I cannot stress that enough, how much I appreciate you being here. And I tell you all the time that we are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means there's other shows for you to be listening to. There's other shows for you to be watching. I've got 3 of them that you need to check out today. Locked On College Basketball was Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. They do a fantastic job. It's the only national daily college basketball podcast, so check them out. My boy Spencer McLaughlin over at Locked On College Football, he puts out like 5 videos a day, man. This guy's on crack. He's insane. He's putting out all sorts of fantastic content covering everything in college football. And then Locked On Big Ten with Craig Sheeman, IU grad, by the way. He hosts the Locked On Big Ten podcast. It talks about the Big Ten Conference every single day. You can listen to him as well. Tell all of those guys that I, Jacob Goins, sent you from Locked On Hoosiers. That's 2 hours of your day, man. That's to driving to and from work. That's to get you through, a fourth of your work day? I mean, I've got you covered. We all got you covered right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, well, Indiana, believe it or not, we still do have basketball games to play, and we still have to find a way to get through adversity and negativity and all of these things and try to win a basketball game here or there. And I know it's a growing trend now for a lot of the fans to just say, to heck with this, just lose your games, fire Woody, let's move on. I'm still telling you, I don't believe in that. I'm still telling you, I don't believe in that mindset, but I understand where you're coming from, and I get why you would think that way. You're saying just to heck with it, we're done. Let's just end it. Let's not drag it on any longer. Look, I get it. I do. I totally understand. I just don't subscribe to that line of thinking. I can't. I want Indiana to win. I want us to be good. I want us to figure it out some way or another. And I think it's going to be really tough. I know it's going to be really tough. And it starts this Friday when you have to take on not just a top 25 team, not just a top 15 team. How about a top 10 team, according to the latest AP poll? And it's also your biggest rival in Purdue. And just to, put a little more salt to the wound on this one, you have to go to Purdue in this game. Yeah, we got to go to Purdue, to West Lafayette, to Mackey Arena on a Friday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. So the whole country gets to watch this game. And I think it's pretty simple to predict what's going to happen here. I think one of two things happens. I think Indiana goes in and competes their ass off. I think they go in and they give it everything they've got. They fight for Indiana. They fight for Mike Woodson, and they just come up short against Purdue, or they just get destroyed. I think that's the two things that are going to happen. I don't think we win the game either way. I don't think there's an official spread on this game yet. But according to ESPN's matchup predictor, Purdue's got an 87% chance to win. So there you go. Winning on the road in conference play is tough as it is. Mackey Arena is a tough place to play as it is anyway. And we're playing about as bad as we can play. And I would say our morale is probably as low as it could possibly be heading into a big game like this. And I don't know which one it's going to be. If we win, I'll gladly take it on the chin and say I was wrong. Absolutely. We'll gladly do that, right? I just feel that in these types of games, and with this Indiana team in particular, I think we keep it close, we're in it and just can't pull it out, or we just get destroyed and we just lay over and die. And that's my fear, that is where we are. And I fear that because I think Mike Woodson could do that. And that's a scary thing to think about. Not physically lay over and die, but just give up, throw in the towel, wave the white flag, like just call it a day, call it a career, call it done. And that's just a bad way to go out, man. So my hope is, right, and I wish I could say this to them or to him or to anybody that would listen. I mean, you guys, of course, is do you really want to go out that way if you're Mike Woodson? Do you really want to go out on a flaming ball and just into the abyss? Do you want to go out with this fan base not liking you anymore? And I think the old school IU fans, for those of you out there that are watching and listening, I would imagine that you could separate his playing days and his coaching days. I would hope. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I don't know. Younger generations that didn't watch him play at Indiana and have only known him as the history or in the history books and as the head coach here, hopefully you can at least understand, okay, it just didn't work out. We still love you, man. Best of luck, best of wishes. Enjoy retirement because, my goodness, you better not go back into coaching. And with a game like this against Purdue, you've got to find a way to have your team ready. Have them ready to compete at the bare minimum, man. Just compete in this game. Get in and act like you want to be there. Show a little fight. Show a little effort. That's something we have just lacked so much under this regime, under Mike Woodson. We've seen it a handful of times. We saw it in the Northwestern game. We saw it in the Ohio State game. We've seen it at times, right? Guys diving on the floor, running in transition, getting fired up, showing a little emotion. But those very few moments get so outweighed by the times of just laziness up and down the floor and yelling at each other and arguing and miscommunication and just hand throwing and just complaining. And that all carries so much weight and it screams so loud. And Indiana has to find a way to overcome that on Friday night. When you go to Purdue, again, no official spread yet. Purdue, they average 77 points a game. They're only allowing 67 points a game, so they're good offensively. They're great defensively. No, they don't have Zach Edey, but they still got a lot of good dudes, and I think their guards are some of the best in the country. I really do. I think Indiana is going to have to find a way. If you're Miles Rice, Trey Galloway, a group effort with Cannon Carlisle, and Anthony Leo better play this game. I'm just telling you. I don't think I've ever said that on this podcast, but Anthony Leo better be in this basketball game because he earned his right to be on the floor last time, and they took him out on the final possession. He better play against Purdue because I think he's the only one that gives you the most fight. Him and Luke Goody, I think. Omar Ballo sometimes. Other than that, everybody's saying, whatever. Another loss. All right, well, we move on. All right, let's get some food. Let's go home. I'm tired of that mentality, man. Indiana's got to find a way to climb out of that hole, get out of the darkness. You're on a horrific streak right now. If you didn't win that game against Ohio State in overtime, by the way, Woody may have already been fired. And you have this game coming up on Friday at Purdue. They're a top 10 team, 8 o'clock Eastern time, Friday night on Fox. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here. I really do appreciate it. Be sure that if you have not already to hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. We're going to try and hit 4,500 subs today, and I want you to be a part of that, and I really do appreciate it. For my audio listeners, like it, subscribe, follow, do whatever you can to that way you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. We are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans. All right, so until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.